from beginning a new adventure with his family to be banned from Balthazar because of his behavior. James Corden is ending the Late Late Show, but there might be different reasons why. Starting with wanting to get on with the next chapter. Honestly, the first question that may have popped up in your mind is, after all this success, why now? And well, the answer to that is both private and professional. When the man himself was asked, he stated that he and his wife wanted their kids to get a taste of the international living experience, but they couldn't have predicted the insanity that initial step meant. And it seems like his family is still surprised that they've been at this since the show was picked up in 2015. But now, the decision depended on how much they wanted to believe that his work and career could balance with his personal life and family development. So for Corden, this goodbye is just that. It's a way for him to be honest and say that there are still other things he knows he's capable of. And if you've been a fan of his for some time, you know that's true. This man appears to be able to do almost anything. His limited series Mammals, currently available on Amazon Prime, is proof of that. So more than anything, in his words, he wants to see what's out there, believing that this isn't the end of his adventure, especially when writing is something he's always wanted to try out. But although this is the main reason Corden states as an explanation for his step back, his announcement did follow a pretty big scandal he'd faced. So the question is, did Eggsgate cause the comedian to reassess his priorities? If you somehow don't know what I'm talking about, stick with me for an insanely odd story. This is one of the two restaurant scandals James got caught up in. But this time, he'd been labeled extremely rude because he allegedly blew up on the staff for serving his wife an egg with some whites.
That she has a serious food allergy, right? So when everybody's meals came, my wife was given the food that she was allergic to. But no, she hadn't taken a bite of it or anything. No worries, we sent it back, all was good.
Now yes, if the story stops there, then his reaction would have been extremely exaggerated.
In the heat of the moment, I made a sarcastic, rude comment, right, about cooking it myself. And it is a comment I deeply regret. Like, I understand.
But according to the man himself, he'd been worried because his wife is allergic to whites and wanted to avoid a dire situation. And when addressing the moment later in an interview, he'd admitted that he called up the owner, Keith McNally, to personally apologize for his behavior. Sweet, right? Well, unfortunately, that piece didn't last too long because he tripped over his words and reignited the feud when he later said, "The whole thing is beneath me." Now, for a regular audience member of his show, that might have been a throwaway comment, but for McNally, it meant that Corden wasn't learning. And when you consider that this isn't the first time these two have had a row, it makes sense that the comedian was finally banned from the restaurant.
The owner of the restaurant had heard what happened, and he Instagrammed that I was banned from his restaurant for 2 offences. One was a meal that I think was back in 2014.
This might have been his last straw for wanting to leave the States. But it wasn't the first time McNally expressed his displeasure at Corden. And according to the owner, the comedian was the first person he banned in 25 years. That has to be some kind of achievement, no? Either way, according to the owner, he allegedly attacked servers on 2 separate occasions, which has ended with the owner's intention to 86 or ban Corden from his establishment. Because, although McNally admits that James Corden is a hugely talented comedian, he's also said he is a tiny cretin and the patron who has been the most obnoxious to his Balthazar servers ever, which means that after all his success, Corden has been unable to make the owner laugh at his antics. He went on to list 2 instances of how the funny man handled his staff. He first acted similarly a few years ago at McNally's former restaurant, Cafe Luxembourg. James Corden sat at table 61 and showed the manager of Balthazar the hair after finishing his main course. Maybe the best way to understand that phrase is to know that Corden threatened to leave some pretty nasty reviews on Yelp if the staff didn't take care of his drinks so far and bring him new ones quickly. But if that doesn't seem obnoxious enough to you, McNally went on to give us a perspective from the other side of Eggsgate, where James blew up on the server for accidentally serving fries and said, "You can't do your job. Maybe I should go into the kitchen and do it myself." I know, yikes. Though James's response to these allegations certainly doesn't stand up to their intensity, especially when he constantly states that the media is, once again, blowing things out of proportion.
I made a rude comment, and it was wrong. It was an unnecessary comment. It was ungracious to the server.
James has already confessed that he doesn't read anything about himself online anymore, which meant that this backlash was the most surreal and odd moment.
To clear the air, and I felt like we dealt with it privately, you know, but by this point, the story was out there and, well, people were upset.
In addition to that, on many occasions, he's refuted the claim that he shouted or swore at anyone, saying that, simply put, he won't engage in the media's understanding of him. To make sure of that, he doesn't look himself up on Google or read any articles about himself anymore. But when asked whether or not this bump in the road bummed him out, he insisted that keeping perspective on what matters is important. For him, he'd made a true effort to produce a positive show and look for the good in between everything else. So whether or not these allegations held any truth to them, that legacy is what Corden hopes will be left behind. And what may be his top priority is that his family and children don't get pulled into all the drama, which for him has ultimately led to his decision to leave the Late Late Show. But could he ever want to come back? Well, if he ever wants to come back, it'll be a pretty unique moment. As of right now, Corden knows that he can't picture a situation in which he'd come back as a late night host. And if he did, he'd be pretty shocked by the moment himself. Though by the sounds of it, he wouldn't mind coming back to the US for some sort of creative work. Since 2015, he said that he's been amazed by his adopted nation, and he truly believes that America is a wonderful country. It has been a very special place for him to live and work, and that certainly contributed to the show he was able to create. He talked about how he simply sat behind a desk and hung out with people, something that's been an honor and a reward for the entertainer. And even after everything, I think we can be grateful for the laughs as well, right? But with that being said, James Corden understands when it's time to wrap up a chapter, especially before it gets sour, and that's just what he's doing. Though, does this goodbye mean that we'll never hear the Late Late Show jingle again? Well, as of right now, talks of the show ending haven't been confirmed. So does that mean we can keep our hopes up? Honestly, we'll have to wait a bit after James's departure to find out. Currently, executives at CBS have not yet said whether James will be replaced or whether the show will end. Say what you will, James had been insanely creative in trying to connect with the viewers, whether that had been by popular segments like Carpool Karaoke or Crosswalk the Musical. CBS President and CEO George Cheeks is very aware of that, so they certainly know what a loss it's going to be when Corden steps down, which has led them to release a statement simply saying, "While we wish he could stay longer, we are thrilled that this partnership will continue for one more season of The Late Late Show." And that might be more important for all of us to focus on until the final night of our beloved show, especially since a lot of the OG crew may be leaving with James as well. So, whether or not the show is given a revamp with a new host, we'll have to wait and see. Those are all the reasons we know why James Corden decided to end The Late Late Show.
I get it. I totally understand. I understand everybody getting upset, and I accept everybody's opinion. I also hate, as I said to the owner, it was never my intention.